So we've got our sample apps installed and imported into Eclipse, and we have no errors now at this point. So we're going to run some of them and just explore some of the modalities of using Eclipse, particularly with these final few labs. So starting with number 8, this is a standalone console application. You know, the usual way you run it, run Java application, and the application is running now in here. We can register a new user. I could log in as that new user, add an activity, list activities, add another activity, and list all the activities now again, and finally I could log out. So that's a standalone application. It doesn't have any of the REST features we introduced in the subsequent lab. It's just a demonstration really of the core application itself. We also have, so we'll terminate that now and look at the next one. In lab 09, we reconfigured the application to be a service that supports REST endpoints rather than revealing a console application. We renamed main to REST main, and if we now run it, we see a slightly different opening screen. Don't be put off by the red here, which often indicates a crash in the other instance. It's just the default color of the toolkit. We're using the Javelin toolkit, and you see here we are now running the application as a service listening on this port here. We can verify that by refreshing, and we're getting not found. That doesn't mean it's not running, it just means that root isn't available. If we do /users, this root should be available, and now we're seeing a list of all the available users. You might recall in the lab we were experimenting with the RESTlet client. This is a more convenient way of exploring the API, and here we're seeing exactly the same results except they're formatted a little bit nicer. So this is the version of the Skeleton Lab 09. There's no client or user interface here. We just have a service running, and we're relying on a browser or developer tools to verify that it worked correctly. Let's terminate that and look at Skeleton Lab 10. Run it in the same way. We have REST main is still here. It's more or less the same application, just with a few enhancements. There's a few extra endpoints implemented, and some other small adjustments. I've launched it again here. It's running on the same port locally. Now we'd like to run the companion app, the client app, which is Skeleton Client Lab 10. This is a standard console application that will be contacting the REST service on port 7000 and implementing the basic user interface, except of course it's distributed now. It's 2 applications running. Let's run this Java application. There's running. Now it's a bit confusing here because we have 2 applications running here now. We have this one, which is the server, and this one, which is the client. We might like to have them both visible at the same time. We can do that by creating a new console view and by making sure that one of the consoles is showing our server. Let's say this one, and we can pin that, and the other console is showing our client. We can also in Eclipse make room on our workspace to show both of them concurrently. So I can drag this up here, and now we're looking at the 2 consoles at the same time. This is the client, this is the server. I can register a new user. I can log in as that user. You can see in the item below a log message has appeared, list users has been called. I can add an activity. I can add another activity. And I can list all activities. This is at the top here in console, we have a client application interacting with the server application down here. Okay, let's terminate these and move on to the next lab, which is lab 11. This is here. pacemaker 11. Again, we run it the same way. We launch rest main. It's running now. You'll see that it's appearing on both consoles simultaneously. We'll fix that in a moment. Let's also run lab 11 client. And we can run this here. It's running in the top here now. And we can try some of the same commands. We can register new user, log in as that new user, and so on and so forth. Some new endpoints have been implemented in the 10 versions, but also we've implemented some unit tests, and these are in here. If we run this unit test here now, JUnit test runner, we should be seeing all these tests passing now at this point. These are unit tests that are testing the endpoints. They are testing that we create activities, create users, log in, etc., etc., etc. That's our main body of our work, really. I'll terminate both of these now again. And let's look at the final lab, lab 12. Lab 12 is just implementing some of the same API in Kotlin. We run it in the same way. It's a Java application. It's a Javelin application. There we're launching the Javelin service as before. And we have no client in lab 12. However, the lab 11 client should still work, even though it's written in Java. Let's see what happens if we run the lab 11 tests at this point. Here we're running them. We're testing now the Kotlin application implemented as a service rather than the Java application. Some of the tests are failing, and that's okay. I'm expecting that because we didn't completely implement in Kotlin the full API. We left out location support, which were left as an exercises. But the other features do work. And remember, we're writing in Java here, and we're exercising the Kotlin service. Okay, that's it. That's the main suite of applications for the last few labs. You may not need to run through all of these. You may be quite happy to run just with lab skeleton 11 as your foundation, and skeleton client 11 as your client foundation. So you don't need to revert to 8, 9, and 10. Or if you want to go onto Kotlin, well, you have a completely configured Kotlin project here with a subset of the APIs already implemented. You could proceed to implement in Kotlin the remaining commands and features. You could keep your client in Java if you wanted, or you convert your client to Kotlin for a higher grade range. That completes our quick tour, and I'll be discussing in the other talks a more comprehensive tour of the various components we've implemented so far.